the gospel that we've just heard points us to some kind of miracle that happened during the time of Jonah, and some kind of miracle that is still happening to Jesus' contemporaries, but which they are unable to see. And I believe maybe, if you can say anything about this gospel, these readings of today, the same kind of miracle has been happening also to us on a daily basis. But we too are blind. We too are incapable of deciphering those signs. And oftentimes when we go to God, when we go to prayer, we continue to ask for signs. We want God to show us really that He is present, active in our lives. And so the question that came to my mind is to know what is it that has been blinding us and preventing us from seeing what should be obvious for men and women of faith. What is it? And you can ask the question to yourselves. What is in my life, in my surrounding, that is preventing me from deciphering the presence of God in history, in my life, in my heart? I believe there are so many answers that we can bring to this. The world around us seems to be in great turmoil. Jean-Luc was saying that I am here on transit. In fact, I'm coming back from some work I was doing in the US. And I think since the election of President Trump, there is so much disruption that has been taking place in the global system, the way we used to know it, and the way we were just used to it. There are new policies. There is a kind of new politics that Trump is unfolding, and many people are so disoriented they don't know what to expect next. And this could not be Trump alone. It could be maybe within our own communities, our own families, our own countries. We see so much going on, so much that emotionally we are disoriented. And we are blinded to say, I can really see the hand of God. So our emotions can be one of that hindrance that prevents us from seeing God and understanding, reading the signs that God is there, showing to each and every one of us about how St. Ignatius of Loyola would remind us in the spiritual exercises, is behaving like someone working for us in all the things around us. It could also be our own daily activities. Oftentimes, maybe as religious men and women, as lay people, as students, as professors, we may end up becoming activists, too busy. I think for philosophers who might be here, when you think of that book written by Plato, The Republic, and he's trying to really think hard about the idea of justice. And somewhere I think Plato says justice is about minding your own business and not being a busy body, meaning scattered through many things that may prevent you from being focused on the most important of the essential. And so our activism also can make us believe that we are in charge, that if any change has to happen, it has to come from us and not from God. But the gospel is reminding us that if we continue to be dispersed, blind to the signs that God has been giving to all of us, maybe we too belong to this generation that Jesus Christ himself calls evil. It means Jesus was shocked, appalled to see that God has been doing so many things. but these people could not see it. And Jesus now, to help these people, he says, look, there are so many signs around you, and one of those signs will be the story of Jonah himself. Jonah became a sign for the people of Nineveh. And I think maybe when we think of Jonah as a sign, what may come to mind immediately is to say, oh, he got swallowed by this great big fish, and 3 days later he was, thrown out by the shores of the sea. So that 3 days' death or absence, which prefigures the one that we shall be celebrating at Easter, or that we celebrate in every Eucharist, is the great sign, the great miracle. But I wanted to say no. Maybe the miracle of Jonah is in Jonah himself as a human being. Because the first reading of today was reminding us that this call and this mission which Jonah received was the second time that God was giving it to him. Almost telling us, you know what? You've been messing around, and wasting all the opportunities that God has given you. But He is a God of persistence, a God who does not give up easily, a God who gives us, all of us, a second chance to say, you can come back, you can redeem yourself. And this can bring us really to the entire history of salvation. As much as God wants the people of Nineveh to convert, He wants Jonah himself to stop being blind, to understand his mission, and to act accordingly. And so that is where I believe we have to locate the most subtle, and maybe the most profound miracle that is taking place here. It is that conversion of Jonah. In the first time when he was called, he disobeyed God, just like humanity. He ran away from God, just like all of us sinners, refusing that friendship which God has planned for us. You will remember St. Ignatius of Loyola in the spiritual exercises, the very beginning, when we meditate on the principle and foundation, he reminds us that every human being, every human life, in fact, has a purpose. And that purpose is summarized, I would say, in three things: to praise, to reverence, and to serve God. And Ignatius of Loyola tells us, you do those three things, the consequence of it is your salvation, the salvation of your soul. So it is just automatic. We do what we're supposed to do. We become just human beings, according to Plato, not being busybodies, but being like minding our own mission, not being scattered, but being focused on the essential. And salvation will come by itself. And then Ignatius reminds us everything else around you is made for you, to help you achieve that purpose for which you were called, you were created. So Jonah himself seems to have forgotten about this. When he ran away from God's friendship and from his mission, he had forgotten completely. And the miracle here is to say he was able to come back to his senses, convert himself, and go to do the mission for which he was sent. Now, why was Jonah reluctant in the first place from doing or accomplishing his mission? Jonah believed maybe this is useless. A few words. Who says? Who can tell that? Who knows that? The people of Nineveh will convert. But the first reading of today tells us Nineveh was a large city. It would have taken him 3 days to preach that word which was given to him. But only in 1 day the city converted completely. It didn't end there. The word reached the king. And the king himself converted and decreed to the entire country, not only Nineveh, but the entire kingdom, that everybody has to follow the path of conversion. And so I think if I have to summarize myself and maybe keep it short, I believe one of the biggest sins that is lurking, that is there watching us, is the sin of pride, maybe, arrogance. We think we know too much. We think we know all too well. And we, how do I put this? We forejudge, if you will. We judge in advance. Oh, this cannot happen. Or God will not make it happen. Or God is not even there, because human beings, powerful human beings, seem to be in church. I talked a little bit about Donald Trump. But it could be any other person with too much power, might. And we think they are the ones who are driving history. I believe the conversion to which we all are called during this Lenten season is to make a room within ourselves, to get rid of our knowledges, and to allow God maybe to move us from our heads to our hearts, so that we can become contrite and humble, as the responsorial psalm that we just prayed reminded us. It is that grace which we need to ask for. It is that grace of conversion, to move away from maybe the degrees, the diplomas, the activities, the emotions, the many other things that can come. It could be wealth, it could be health, it could be anything that you want to name, preventing us from fulfilling that for which we were created. I remember a couple of years ago, Pope Francis sent a number of theologians in the existential peripheries, as he likes to call it, and he said, go there and listen to the average people, the small people, the everyday people. Listen, forgetting that you are theologians, that you have learned and studied all these big names, but let the faith of these small people surprise you. And once you encounter that surprise, come back now to your desks and try to theologize from that surprise. And so what is it that is surprising us? The way the conversion of Jonah surprised Christ himself, or the people of Nineveh in their conversion. May the Lord continue to give us this grace of moving from our heads, our minds, our obvious, everything that seems to be evident to us, to read, to decipher, to find really the ways in which God has been talking to each and every one of us in the silence of our lives, in the events of our world, and in the many other ways in which He wants us to be closer to the purpose for which we were created. The Lord be with you.
Amen.